Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How's everyone doing?
Wa alaikum salam.
Mufti Abdul Wahab is on today with me. Sheikh Abdullah took the night off. We'll give some time for the audience to jump on. Mufti Abdul Wahab, you're good?
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
All right.
Abdullah forced me on,
He forced you on?
Back up mode.
I think he has to do some fundraiser for a local community somewhere, virtual fundraiser. How's my new mic, Mufti Abdul Wahab?
Your new mic, your new setup. I feel bad Sheikh Abdullah is missing out because he's been making fun of your light the last 2 days.
Yes, sir.
Nice light. Glowing today. Nice.
No, I just
I showed him the mic you have. Want to show them?
Yeah, I got this. No, I don't want to show off,
Show it. Just like.
Nah.
Okay, some humility.
Yeah, it's the Rode mic,
Oh wow.
Yeah, I think yesterday I was using those AirPods, but they were the wired ones. So today I got them. I ordered this a few days ago, so hopefully I want to make sure the audience can hear us properly.
Alhamdulillah. Can everyone hear?
Yeah, just make sure everyone can hear.
Whoever's on, you say salam wherever you're coming from, so just we can start.
Yes.
Show us some love.
Yes, Jazakallah khair for tuning back in, guys. Brothers and sisters, whoever's tunes in from wherever you are, we appreciate that, and hopefully you're enjoying the reflections that you're hearing on a nightly basis from within this conversation that we're having with Sheikh Abdullah, myself. Ramadan Mubarak to all of you, whoever, Ramadan Kareem to everyone. It's a pretty challenging Ramadan. I'll be honest with you, Mufti Abdul Wahab. It's not easy because usually at this time for Huffaz, after iftar till before Taraweeh, we're nervous, we're shaking, we're excited. We go to the masjid's full. People have there's this jubilation in the masjid, and you start praying Taraweeh. And after Taraweeh, you have this this relief, right? And this year, people are not. They're not having that opportunity of going to the masjid. The masjid is packed, so it is quite different even for myself. So just before we start with the reflections, I mean, did someone ask you a question, or how are you coping with that, and how are you trying to stay afloat and positive? We've been leading Taraweeh for many years. How are you trying to stay afloat and positive during this time?
So I mean, as a great question. One of the things that we notice from the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ is in the 10 years while he was in Medina, he never once completed the Quran in the masjid in the month of Ramadan. Every single year he completed the Quran in his house. So one of the things that I asked one of our teachers about, Mufti Asim, and he said that this year we can make it a sunnah to complete our Quran in our house with our own families, with our own children, our spouse, because that's how the Prophet ﷺ completed the Quran in every year in the month of Ramadan, where he would complete the Quran in his own house. And normally, since we do it when we lead Taraweeh, we lead it in the masjid, we don't get a chance to even complete the Quran in our own household. So I encourage everyone to try to complete the Quran in your own house, with your own family, with your own children. Mashallah, Miftaah also has the 2 p.m. Quran recitation, where we have some of our students that are reciting the Quran, and you can read along with them. I think that's a great opportunity for that, and hopefully that habit sticks. What do you think, Mufti? Is that a good idea?
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's no sugarcoating it. I'll be honest with you. There's no sugarcoat. I mean, I'll be very honest. People are like, oh, you can say all this hadith and seerah, but it's not easy, man. It's not easy. It's not, I was driving. We have all these brothers and sisters from all over the world, man. India, Barbados, Dubai, Michigan. We have some of our students saying they miss us. We miss you guys too, all right? So hopefully one of these days we can see you. And Jazakallah khair for tuning in from everywhere. But I was saying there's no sugarcoating. Yesterday I was driving by the masjid at night, and it's like that. It's to get yourself in the zone. Mm-hmm. It's not that simple. So I just thought to myself that, look, if we can persevere in this month, it's like putting on ankle weights and running, right? Mm-hmm. It's hard this month. But when you put ankle weights on and you run and you run and you run, and then you take those off, you can you can dash now, right? Because it's difficult. And when you can, for example, you're doing push-ups and you put like a 5 pound or 10 pound on your back and you do push-ups and you take it off, it becomes easier. That's the same thing this month of Ramadan. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be challenging. There's no sugarcoating it.
We lost you for a second. You lost me for a second? For a second?
No, your internet's bad. I don't think you lost me.
Cool.
All right. So I think I think that we should all keep that in mind, that this Ramadan will be challenging, and hopefully if we can persevere, next Ramadan will be so much easier when we have the masjid and stuff, and it'll be like the person who takes his ankle weights off and now he's or she's in without ankle weights running, it becomes that much easier. So the jazakallah khair for your insight, but for me, that's what I'm thinking about. And hopefully just letting the audience know it's not that easy, but just keep at it, persevere, and inshallah Allah will make this Ramadan a beautiful Ramadan for you as well. And just like how you're being challenged, we're being challenged. And one of our ways to feel good about Ramadan is this live reflections that we have, these conversations that we have. It makes us feel like we're in the mode of Ramadan again. We wish we could see you guys, but you people coming on and seeing us and listening to us gives us so much motivation. So we're jumping into the third juz now. The third juz, in the middle of the third juz, Surah Baqarah ends, and a little bit before the middle, and then Surah Ali Imran begins. So it's interesting, this juz right here, it starts with تِلْكَ الرُّسُلُ فَضَّلْنَا بَعْضُهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ. So I'm going to ask Mufti Abdul Wahab, what are some points he wants to talk about? But just for the audience to know, the first ayah is about prophets. These are prophets and who we have given priority or superiority to some over the others. And it ends also about the prophets, right? The last ruku is about prophets as well. It tells us that this juz, there's a theme in here. The theme is, there's an ayah in here, قُلْ تَعَالَوْا إِلَى كَلِمَةٍ سَوَاءٍ بَيْنَنَا وَبَيْنَكُمْ أَلَّا نَعْبُدَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ وَلَا نُشْرِكَ بِهِ شَيْئًا وَلَا يَتَّخِذَ بَعْضُنَا بَعْضًا أَرْبَابًا مِنْ دُونِ اللَّهِ. There's a theme in this juz right here about the message in this juz is a unified message across all faiths, Abrahamic faiths, right? Allah is saying, come to a message which is equal, that the same message that came to Ibrahim, the same message that came to Musa, the same message that came to Isa, and this is the same message coming to the Prophet, right? So this juz, if you want to summarize the entire juz, in this juz, it has different messages that were given to different prophets, and it just summarizes all of them, right? Of course, we're not going to be able to talk about every single aspect of the juz. So Mufti Abdul Wahab, what do you think? What are some points that you're going to mention, inshallah? What do you have in mind? What are some gems?
I think so the sequence of the first, so Surah Baqarah is comprised of 3 ajza. So the first juz, second juz, and a part of the third one. The first juz generally speaks about Iman, where we spoke about, mashallah, you and Sheikh Abdullah spoke about it yesterday. Second juz speaks about the A'mal, the 4 pillars of Islam outside of Iman. And the third juz wraps it up. At the end of the third juz, it's all wrapped up. So one thing to speak about in the surah that I was reflecting upon is obviously Ayatul Kursi, which we can't ignore Ayatul Kursi. And then the second one is the last 2 verses of Surah Al-Baqarah. And it's, some mufassirun like Imam Ibn Ashur, he says that Surah Baqarah is also called Surah Al-Iman, because Allah SWT has given a special significance to both of these surahs, where the Prophet says, Iqra'ul Quran, that read Quran and it will do shafa'ah for you on the Day of Judgment. In that same narration, the Prophet continues and he says that recite Baqarah and Ali Imran, because it will become clouds for you on the Day of Judgment and it will intercede for you until you reach Jannah. And this is wrapped up in Aman al-Rasul ma unzila ilayhi min rabbihi wal mu'minun. And the third thing that we were speaking about as well is the family of Ali Imran, who they are. So I think the first out of those 3, right, was...
So I'm going to give you the opportunity. Mufti Abdul Wahab is my younger brother, by the way, so I'm going to give him the mic let's have a conversation about the Ayatul Kursi, because you talk about Ayatul Kursi. I have a few points in my mind as well, but let's start. People know about Ayatul Kursi. People have an idea that Ayatul Kursi is the a'zamu ayatan fil Quran. Ayatul Kursi is verses of protection. So just give us some background about Ayatul Kursi quickly.
I mean, going outside of the protection realm of it, because there are many narrations. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu's narration is a famous narration, Sahih Muslim, where he was protecting the wealth of the believers. The Prophet made him in charge, and Shaitan came to him and he wrestled him down. And after 3 times of doing it, he gave him Ayatul Kursi, and he says, if you read this, I can never harm you. A similar narration comes about Umar radiallahu anhu. And Ali ibn Abi Talib, one day he stood on the member of Kufa, and he said that the Prophet ﷺ told us that whoever recites this verse can never be harmed by a human nor a jinn. That's the protection aspect of it. But one of the things I find interesting about Ayatul Kursi is a linguistic. The Ayatul Kursi is actually 9 portions, right? An ayah cannot be a sentence, because there's ayah that are just 1 word or 1 letter. So this entire ayah has 9 portions. And each portion is connected to the last portion. So the part 1 is connected to part 9, part 2 is connected to part 7, part 3 to part 6. in part 4. So each, like, so for example, Allah says, Allahu la ilaha illa wal hayyul qayyum, right? In the first part of this verse, we find al hayyul qayyum, that Allah is al hayy. How Imam Fakhruddin al-Razi rahimahullah says, is not just a person who is alive, but rather the person who gives life. Al qayyum, the dominant. And the last part of this ayah, Allah says, huwa al-aliyyul azim, that He's always the highest and He's always the most dominant. So it's connected. The second part of this ayah is لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just never dozes off or never falls asleep. And the second to last portion of this is ولا يؤوذه حفظهما, that He takes care of the entire world, but despite taking care of the entire world, He never gets tired and never falls asleep. The third part of this ayah is له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض, for Allah is whatever is in the skies and in the earth. And the third last portion of this ayah is وَسِعَ كُرْسِيُّهُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala engulfs and immerses the entire world through His arsh and through His dominance. So one is that Allah owns it, and one is Allah's above and on top of. Fawqiyya is there. The fourth part of this ayah is that لا تأخذ له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه, that no one has the ability to intercede on the day of judgment except through Allah's permission. And then the fourth last portion is وَلَا يُحِيطُونَ بِشَيْءٍ مِنْ عِلْمِهِ إِلَّا بِمَا شَاءَ, that no one can have knowledge except through the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the middle part is يَعْلَمُ مَا بَيْنَ أَيْدِيهِمْ وَمَا خَلْفَهُم, where Allah is pretty much saying that I know what I just did. What I just did was I connected each part of this ayah to each other, and that was not in any way a coincidence, but rather يَعْلَمُ مَا بَيْنَ أَيْدِيهِمْ, I know the first 4 portions that I brought together and the last 4. And some of us, you don't say يَعْلَمُ مَا بَيْنَ أَيْدِيهِمْ means that I know what's happening in dunya, and the last 4 are related to the akhirah, that I know what will happen in the akhirah. So this is just in a few minutes. Normally this part takes 10-15 minutes to speak about, but I don't have much time. But how each part of this ayah is connected to the latter part, and it creates a synchronized design. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't just speak to us in layman words, but rather He's expounding upon this ayah through His miracles of the words that He is using, right? So I found that to be interesting.
MashaAllah. I mean, that's awesome. So for those of us who, all of us these messages should make us even more encouraged and motivated to learn more about the Quran. Of course, in 25-30 minutes, we cannot go over all the details, but Ayatul Kursi is a powerful ayah. We should recite it before sleeping at night. We should make sure our children are memorizing this ayah. We should recite it every time we have we're in need of anything, we are in doubt about something, there's uncertainty in our lives. We should recite this ayah. It's a very, very powerful ayah.
So everyone knows that, like, this ayah comes right after Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu anfiqu.
Yeah, I was gonna talk about that right now as well, right? So one other theme, the second theme that I wanted to talk about in this juz is there's a lot of infaq, and that's an interesting discussion, especially in the circumstance that we're living in. Infaq means to spend in the path of Allah, right? So the most generous person to ever walk on the face of the earth was Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. No one can come near his generosity. What's interesting is, and I'm going to give an example of this before explaining what I want to say. Look, take for example, if you see a homeless person, Allah SWT will give everyone shelter. You see a homeless person who has a pillow, who lays down on the sidewalk. And then another homeless person comes and lays down next to him, who doesn't have a pillow. And then a car drives by, stops the traffic light, sees 2 homeless people. One has a pillow, one doesn't have a pillow. And someone rolls on their window and gives a pillow to that homeless person. All of us, our hearts will melt. Oh, this is a really nice person. It's a really kind gesture. But just for 1 second, think about this scenario. That homeless person came, laid down without the pillow, and the homeless person who had one pillow took his pillow and he gave it to the one who just came. So he gave his own pillow to the one who didn't have a pillow, right? So in his suffering, he was still generous. That's a very difficult thing to do. That when a person is suffering themselves, to be generous and to be caring and to be giving, we usually give people a pass, right? Especially when we go fundraising or collecting money, we usually give people a pass. Oh, business is down. Specialists are saying, most of my 30-40% of my business is gone because I'm doing telemedicine. So we give people, we give ourselves a pass, and we give people, and it's normal, that's natural. But here's the Prophet Sallallahu, who is the most generous person to ever walk on the face of the earth, in his entire life, he was in more need of what he was giving, right? It's not like he had so much wealth in his home. If he ate one day, he would not eat the next day. He was always living in poverty, but he was the most generous person. So that theme over here about الذين ينفقون في السراء والضراء, like the ones who spend in good times and also the ones who spend when times are tough, right? So in this juz, Allah talks about spending, the rewards of spending. Now, don't get me wrong over here, right? There's many different ways of spending, right? Mufti Abdul Wahab, like there's people when they think about spending, like, oh, this guy's gonna do a fundraiser again. But there's different ways of spending. Spending can be like how Imam Shafi rahimahullah in Da'il Ayyam taf'al ma tasha wa tib nafsan idha hakam al-qada, he talks about that if you want, if وإن كثرت عيوبك في البرايا وسرك أن يكون لها غطاء تستر بالسخاء فكل عيب يغطيه كما قيل السخاء. He says if you have a lot of bad habits and bad qualities, all of us have bad habits and bad characteristics. We all do, man. Like this, I mean, even all of us have it. We all have. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's Michael Jordan. When he came to the league, his weakness was his jump shot. I mean, everyone has strengths and weaknesses. And you try to maintain your strength, and you try to make your weakness into your strength. So Imam Shafi'i is saying that if you could work on one characteristic which will cover up all the other negative faults of yours and will make you beloved in the eyes of people and the eyes of Allah, then work on the characteristic of generosity, right? So Allah, He encourages us in this chapter over and over again, that famous ayah of مثل الذين ينفقون أموالهم في سبيل الله كمثل حبة أنبتت سبع سنابل في كل سنبلة مئة حبة والله يضاعف لمن يشاء, is in this juz, where the one who spends in the path of Allah, Allah multiplies by so many fold. It's mentioned in this ayah, right? In this juz. The aspect of riba being haram is mentioned in this juz because Allah is saying spending in the path of Allah, right? The Prophet ﷺ is the most truthful person. He doesn't have to take an oath. We have to take an oath to prove our point. But the Prophet ﷺ takes an oath. He says, I swear by the one whose hands my life is in, who controls my life, and my life is in their control. I swear by Allah that ma naqasa malu min sadaqah. That when a person is generous and he gives money, it does not decrease their money, even though we will see that we have $20 in our account, we give $10 away, it looks like we only have $10 left. It apparently looks like it, but the Prophet is telling us it doesn't decrease, it only increases. So the second theme that I want to talk about in this juz is about spending. Now, we all have our different ways of spending. Could you, Mufti Abdul Wahab, tell us about some different aspects of how we can spend, even if you don't have money?
Is there, I was going to ask you, is there a specific story that comes to your mind that when you think of a generous gesture, it just sticks out to you? You don't have to mention the person's name, just an incident. I'm sure we travel a lot, to raise funds for our institution. So do you have something you want to share about that?
I'll tell you something. Like the easiest way to, I asked, look, my mother, this is a question, this is a good question. I asked my mother once, it's really, I have 3 kids. It's not easy. It's challenging to raise them in this country. I mean, come on, right? It doesn't matter how much you insulate them. They got these screens, they got these iPhones, it's just, the things that they're exposed to, right? So I asked my mother, I said, how'd you do it, right? How did it happen where you made sure that five of your sons, you protected them as much as you can, they became hafiz, alim, whatever. How did you do it, right? And she basically gave an answer to me. She said, अपनी दुआओं से कुछ नहीं हुआ, औरों की दुआओं से हुआ है. From our du'as, nothing happened. It's the fact that we were generous to others and they made du'a for us. Meaning we cook food for them, we gave them a home. If they were traveling, we let them stay at our home. And we used to just we were just good hosts. And because we were generous with whatever we had, even though they were poor, people made du'a for them, for our parents and for us. And my mother is saying that it is because of those du'as that were made naturally, automatically from generosity. We have to figure out a way to win people's du'as. Not literally go ask them for du'a, but do something for them that naturally from their hearts, du'a comes out. Whenever they think of you, they start crying. And you're asking me a question like, man, there's so many people like that in my life. So many people, like when I think of them, I cry, because if it wasn't for their generosity, we would not have institutions. We would not, Allah uses different people at different times. But these are people that we cry for, make dua for. So I encourage all of you who are watching is think of those acts, right? and I'm going to say this. I'm sorry, Mufti Abdul Wahab, I'm going to go on a tangent over here. I'm going to say this, that it's, the deeds that we do that everyone knows about, don't have too much expectations on those deeds. Like right now, this deed that we're doing right here, if it's la alayna wa la lana, at the end of the day, if this is not held against us and we don't get reward for it, we would be happy. The deeds that we do that nobody knows about, just only Allah knows about, we have to those are the deeds that we can expect that Allah will give us on the Day of Judgment. Like those are deeds that sometimes we even forgot about. You know that about a person who gives with his right hand and he forgets this and his left hand doesn't know? When does that ever happen? Like, when do you ever give with your right hand? Like, people are waiting for a stimulus check. They're just waiting every single day. Yeah, we got it, right? And so this is the same thing. Like, usually when you give, you should see the person's face when he's giving. Like, it's not that. So how does it ever happen when you're giving with your right hand, your left hand doesn't know? How does that happen? There are some deeds that we do in our life that we just did naturally out of our instinct. We did something for someone, we touched someone in a way, and that person never forgot about us. And he made or she made dua for us for the rest of their life. And it's because of their duas, our children become successful. So we need to look for those opportunities. Now that takes us into the story of Ali Imran, Mufti Abdul Wahab. You're the master of Ali Imran. So that takes us straight into that Maryam and that entire story is the product of a dua. So take a few minutes and talk about that, inshallah.
Just piggyback off that point of spending without people knowing, like the story of Abu Talha, the Sahaba, where there was a man that came to the Prophet's masjid and he asked, "Is there anyone that can host me for the night and give me food?" And the Prophet ﷺ sent Anas ibn Malik to the house of his wives, and subhanallah, like when you read the story, you realize the Prophet ﷺ would always take the first step to help the person. And then when he was informed that there is no food in your house, any of your houses, out of the houses of your wives, then he asked Sahabas, never turning a person away. And finally, one Sahaba stood up, and he took this man to his house, and he knocked on his wife's door and his house door. And his wife said that, there's no food in this house except for that which we can feed our kids with. And Abu Talha, they said that his name was Abu Talha. He said that this is Dhayful Rasulillah. This is the guest of the Prophet. We have to do something about it. We can't just turn him away. So he's fa'alliluhum, just make them fall asleep, hearing the noise of the stove and the pot boiling on the top of the stove. So they fall asleep, and his wife stands in front of the lamp, and they eat. And the guest is eating food, but Abu Talha is acting like he's eating without putting any food in his mouth. So they tried so hard not to allow someone else to find out about their deed. The next morning, after Fajr Salah, the Prophet ﷺ asked, "Where is Abu Talha?" And he stood up. And he asked Abu Talha, "How was my guest last night? Was he treated well?" Abu Talha said, "Yes, I tried my best to take care of him." So, and the Prophet asked him, "Do you want to tell us what you did?" And he said, "Nothing happened, nothing special." And if it was us, like if someone asked me and if I gave money, I'm like, "Yes, alhamdulillah, Allah, it just happened." I swiped the card. So nothing happened. I don't know about anything. And the Prophet said, don't mess around, because Allah revealed an ayah to me that وَيُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَةٌ وَمَنْ يُوقَ شُحَّ نَفْسِهِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ, that there are those individuals that spend upon others despite them having a dire need towards it. So as you were saying, Mufti, that giving people despite you having less, and that brings you to the idea of خَيْرُ النَّاسِ أَنْفَعُهُمْ لِلنَّاسِ, that the best of people are the ones that can benefit people. And a man one day asked the Prophet ﷺ, referring to the fact that he had no wealth, that how can I give charity? And he said, "Inna min afdal a'mali ila Allahi an yudkhila fi akhika al-muslimi surura." That one of the best a'mal that you can ever do is to bring a smile on the face of your brother or sister. And he was referring this as sadaqah, not as in like a salat. It was referring to as sadaqah. The best sadaqah is to make someone happy, because generally charity makes someone happy. It takes away a difficulty from their life. So just piggybacking off that, and even the story of Ali radiallahu anhu in Surah Al-Dahr, inshallah, yourself and Shaykh Abdullah can speak about it later when that just comes. But in moving towards Ali Imran, Musab, can we speak about the end of Surah Baqarah just for a minute in reference to Aman al-Rasul? Because that's an ayah where pretty much Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala summarizes our iman. And so for those that don't know, that's an ayah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually
definitely can speak about it. I'll give you a timer of 1-2 minutes, because we have 4 minutes left and we have to just end it, inshallah.
Okay. So for those that, I'll just say this. We spoke about Ali Imran in the morning reminder at 2 p.m. So you can go ahead, Aman Rasul in the morning reminder. So you can go ahead. So if you guys want, the link is, I can share the link. You can watch it later on. But let's just jump into Ali Imran. So I'm just talking.
So I think we have a few minutes left, and I want to leave. One of my things that I like to leave the audience with is just something they can take away with, right? Take back home, right? So we know what the juz is all about. The juz, this third juz is about the prophets in a message that is very unified, right? And now we're into Ali Imran. We will give you we'll give the audience some background on Ali Imran tomorrow, because we don't have too much time to talk about it today. But this is a very important family, and this is some very important gems we can take from this family, right? But there's one dua that comes right at the beginning of Surah Ali Imran I want to leave all of you with. And I'm sure many of you already recite this dua, but now when you recite this dua, we should recite this with a little bit more attention. We should spend some more time thinking about it. The dua is رَبَّنَا لَا تُزِغْ قُلُوبَنَا بَعْدَ إِذْ هَدَيْتَنَا وَهَبْ لَنَا مِن لَدُنْكَ رَحْمَةً إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ الْوَهَّابُ. Wallah, it's such a beautiful dua. Many times Allah SWT gives us tawfiq to change our lives. He gives us tawfiq to start doing good deeds. He enables us to stay away from sins. And this is a very beautiful feeling to have, like maybe after Ramadan or coming back from Umrah or Hajj. But because of our own sins, that we get deprived of those good deeds that we were once doing in our life that were habits. Like we weren't even thinking twice about it. We were reciting Quran every single day. But now getting back up and starting that habit again becomes so challenging. This dua is basically asking Allah, oh Lord, لا تزغ قلوبنا, do not let our hearts deviate بعد إذ هديتنا, after you have given it guidance. Allah, after, meaning if you guided me, that means you love me. That's why you guided me. Because Allah yajtabi ilayhi man yasha wa yahdi ilayhi man yunib. Because it is definitely a selection from Allah that if Allah allowed me to come to the masjid and pray salah, Allah allowed me to watch this reflection that we're doing right now or sit in front of the Quran, this is directly from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So we are asking Allah that once you gave me that opportunity, do not take it away from me. Do not make my heart, deviate after you have given that to me. That's like we talk about in sports, like an athlete has everything, but he blows it all. How many times we heard that story? Gets drafted in the first round, has everything, but he just can't, he keeps tripping on his own shoes, right? Like with his bad habits or bad friends, whatever it is. Allah gives us everything. Allah gives us family, children, gives us everything. But for some reason, we cannot stop tripping over our own bad habits. So we have to ask Allah to help us. رَبَّنَا لَا تُزِغْ قُلُوبَنَا, do not deviate our hearts. بَعْدَ إِذْ هَدَيْتَنَا, after you have guided us. وَهَبْ لَنَا مِن لَدُنْكَ رَحْمَةً, and oh Allah, subhanallah, and oh Allah, after you have already gifted us with mercy. Wahaba means to get something from Allah that's unexpected, that you do not deserve. We're telling Allah, oh Allah, you gave me all this, I don't deserve it. It is unexpected from the unseen, you gave it to me, right? So once you have given it to me, just as fast as Allah gives us something, He can take from us. And nobody can question Him when He gives, and nobody can question Him when He takes. Because innaka antal wahab, because the ultimate bestower is Allah. And the way to keep on taking from Allah, the sabab to keep taking from Allah, is through His ta'ah, through His obedience. The more you obey Allah, the more Allah gives you. And there are times where you're not obeying Allah, Allah is giving you to just give you the motivation to come back to Him. But in spite of getting from Allah, it's like, and I'll end with this example, it's like when the team is up by 20 points and then they start losing, it's because they stopped doing what they were doing to get to that point, right? So Allah has given us some mercy, Allah has gifted us with some ni'mas. We should never ever put our guard down. Rather, the more Allah gives us, the more we should be obedient to Him. And I conclude with the statement of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud anhu. Mufti Abdul Wahab, this is one of the most beautiful statements I've read in my life. People used to see Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, who's one of the most exalted Sahaba, and he's been with the Prophet ﷺ for all his life. One of the early companions who accepted Islam. And when after the Prophet ﷺ passed away, they used to see him praying Salah all night. all night he used to pray salah and cry like a sinner, like this person did something really bad, like a criminal. So somebody asked him one day, and he said, why do you pray like this? I mean, like, pray 2 rakats, pray 4 rakats, but like you pray salah like this is you did something really wrong in your life. And he says, Inna al-himar idha zida fil alfi zida fil amali. That verily a donkey, when you give it more food, it does more work for you. I mean, how does that make sense? He said, when you give the donkey more food and you take care of it, it works even harder for you. Meaning, Allah has given me so much, that means I have to work harder for Allah. And that was his way of, thanking Allah and making sure that the ni'mah was preserved, right? So that's why the ta'ah is also, it's a jalabul ni'mah wa hifadul ni'mah. Ta'ah, obedience to Allah, it protects what you have and it brings more from Allah. And it's such a beautiful thing. It's jalbun ni'mah. Jalb means to protect what you have. So whatever we have to protect it. And whatever we don't have, we're asking Allah for it. And so this dua is a beautiful way to remember that. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. Jazakallah khair for logging in. Inshallah, we'll see you guys.
Know that, inshallah, that even we have our 6 p.m. Ramadan immersion. If you haven't signed up yet, please do sign up for that. You'll love it. And we also have the Quran recitation at 2 p.m. It's on YouTube and Facebook as well. And obviously, Shaykh Abdullah and Mufti Abdul Rahman will be doing this every single day.
Inshallah. Take care, inshallah. Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.